everybody to ADI Ahmedabad's Tête-à-tête for the anniversary celebration, I would say, because ADI Ahmedabad chapter has completed a year this month, and we should have done something about it. But this is one event that is to remind everybody that the chapter has been here for a year. We have very, very special guests today with whom I have the pleasure to chat with. From Brand Musiq is Rajeev Raja and Ajit Varma. I'd like both of them, one after the other, to tell a little bit about themselves, to introduce themselves, where they've been, their journey till they reach Brand Musiq, and then we will continue with Brand Musiq. Maybe you can stop sharing right now, Rajiv.
Yeah. Yes.
So Rajiv, will you go first and tell us about yourself, and then we'll come to Brand Musiq after Rajiv has also.
Sure. Yeah. So, hi everybody. I'm Rajeev Raja, founder and Soundsmith of Brand Musiq. Actually, a little bit about my journey. I was in advertising and branding for like over 25 years. My last paid position was National Creative Director at DDB Mudra here in Mumbai, India. And I've also been a musician all my life, even before I got into advertising. So I'm a jazz and fusion flautist. And I guess very blessed that throughout my advertising career, so I worked in agencies from Clarion, which became Bates, to Mudra, which became DDB. So it's been quite a journey, but I kept my music going right through. And though I couldn't spend as much time as I would have liked to satisfy my artistic urges, but I kept music going. So I've played over the years with so many fantastic musicians, including Shankar, Ehsan Loy, Tawfiq Qureshi, Louis Banks, etc. So it's been a full-fledged. I wouldn't say I didn't earn money out of it as a living, so I would call it a semi-professional kind of career, but playing at a professional level.
One jazz musician once told me that what is a jazz musician without a girlfriend? It's a homeless jazz musician.
Sorry,
homeless jazz musician.
Homeless. You're absolutely right. So, so that brings me to the point in 2008, where, or 2011 rather, I was at DDB, and one day I was, I had to perform a very important concert with some really serious musicians. And I found that I couldn't cut some of the passages, right? That's because I wasn't playing enough. And as you get senior in advertising, you can imagine, I was traveling and more meetings than music. So it was a moment of epiphany where I said, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Do I want to keep growing in the advertising space at the cost of music? Or how do I find a way to, for music to be my life? And that's really where this whole idea of looking at sound and music as an identity for brands. So I said, wow, that'll monetize my passion, and it'll be 24/7 music, but it's also about brands, which I've done for 25 years. So that's really where Brand Musiq began. And I will allow Ajit to introduce himself, but just to add that Ajit and I have known each other for over 30 years, maybe closer to 40 years. And we first met in college, and it so happened that our careers also met in advertising. And I'll leave it to Ajit to fill in the rest. Over to you, Ajit.
Yeah, I think I met Rajiv in 1978, so however many years that is. And just to carry that flow through, we both came to Bombay around the same time, 1990. We both got married, not to each other, but to really lovely people around the same year, 1990.
We will have to ask your wives about that, no?
You can. It's totally And we've all been friends, very close friends, the families and us. I mean, his wife, his children, my wife, and all the extended family. So we've sort of grown up together in the past 30 years. And we worked together in advertising for many, many years as partners. And then I took a sort of a quite a big 90-degree departure, and I went into the whole area of health and not-for-profit. So I worked for an American health NGO for 10 years, based in India, but I was running their operations across Asia. And somewhere along that time, Rajiv called me. Actually, he had a partner then who he started the company with, who unfortunately had a bad incident and passed away. All of a sudden, just, woke up one morning and that's it. And we were sitting together and said, what next? And I said, I'll come from Bangalore for a couple of weeks and help out Rajiv to just settle some of the more, sort of account management or, management type of issues, which Rajiv neither had the time or patience for. So I came down for 3 weeks, and here it is. It's 6.5 years, and I'm still here. I haven't gone back home. So that's the story. And yeah, I think we can progress into the next whatever.
So I think, Rajiv, you should kind of check how many people here are actually using their senses. This is something that is very close to my heart. I have been teaching in design schools and always talking about understanding your 5 senses and designing for your 5 senses. Because if you design for all 5 senses, then you probably have got it right. For example, if you go to a very expensive restaurant and the music is not right or the smell of the place is not right, then your experience completely changes from there. So I often have fights at the restaurants where the music is terrible, and I always ask them to change it or just put it off. So I'm sure all of you also have the same kind of experience. And Rajiv, I think, wanted to check how good that works with your auditory senses. Am I right, Rajiv? Ajit, I think Rajiv's gone, yeah.
Ooh, he's gone off.
Probably a network issue. He'll be back.
The travails of network, and you just said that the network was doing well.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. Don't ever say that. Don't ever say that. No, he'll be back. He'll be back.
He'll be back, of course.
Just been knocked off. He's back here. Yeah.
Yeah, I will pin him and bring
Rajiv, all yours. If we can start with the experiential session.
Yes, sorry. As you said, we can't predict
the net.
The weather and the net.
Yeah, it seems to be really bad.
But we can hear you and see you, Rajiv.
Rajiv, you can do the first part even without the screen. Actually.
Yeah.
Just introduce it.
Okay, so let me just stop the video. If it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Sorry, I'll have to sort of deny y'all the luxury of seeing my handsome face.
Thank you, Rajiv. Very kind of you.
I think the internet is pretty bad. So, okay. So let's go through an experience. You were talking about the senses, if I'm right. And let's see how.
Sound that came to mind immediately when you said MOGO. One that we've all grown up with. It's ting, ting, ting. And I experimented with it the other day. I asked several people, do you remember this sound and which brand it was attached to? And a lot of people remember that it had to do with the biscuit, but couldn't remember which biscuit.
Oh my God, that's really surprising.
Yeah. So the only one who did was my brother.
Okay. So what age group was this? Was it a younger age group or an older age group?
I think our age group knows that sound much better than the current generation.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So let's go through a bit of an experience.
Yeah.
And what I'd like you all to do is just close your eyes as I play a piece of music. the whole idea is for you all to just listen to the music and go where the sound takes you. Don't try and analyze it. You will probably see some imagery, you will feel some emotions, it may trigger some memories. And then we can come back and have a quick chat about what you all saw and felt, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so eyes closed, everybody.
No
Here
cheating.
goes. Yeah, no cheating, no cheating. Okay, you can open your eyes. Did that come through loud and clear for everyone?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, lovely. So if any of y'all, you just want to just unmute and say a word or two that you know, either imagery that you saw or emotions that you felt, that'd be great.
Anybody?
I was transported to village side somewhere, you know, I
Yeah.
felt morning, you know, a morning time and village side,
Yeah.
farms and, you know, things like that.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so you saw greenery, etc.
No, I saw more of a dust, you know, morning dust that is there, kind of, you know, brownish, no
Okay,
greenery.
Okay. Okay, great. Anybody else?
Yeah, it was very opposite for me because I saw colorful balloons first,
Right.
then water, and then
Yeah, water.
Malgudi days and the Doordarshan.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lovely.
but very peaceful.
Somebody saying something? Couldn't hear.
I also thought somebody was saying something, but I don't hear it.
Yeah. Who else?
I felt that there was this, you know, you have this early morning with the rays of the sun just coming into the green, as you said, in the
Yes.
open spaces, and that morning light and fresh air that you breathe at such a time. That's what
Right.
I felt it had. But then there was that little bit of that Jaya He, Jaya He, Jaya He kind of a sound in between.
Okay.
That's at least what I
Lovely.
heard.
Okay. Anybody else? Actually, there's no right or wrong answer. Just anything that the whole idea is to get
What's your experience
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this music? That's really it.
Yeah, I think Laila wants to say something.
Yeah, it took me back to my school days, where we had lots of theater productions which would have, you know, a soundtrack before it was starting, and usually Anand Shankar kind of music.
Okay.
So it took me back to those days.
Right.
So Leila, when you say school days, where would it be geographically? I mean, which part of, let's say, India or where?
It was Chandigarh, and
Chandigarh.
we had a lot of dance dramas and ballets.
Anybody else?
Nobody else is going live.
Okay. Okay, great. So, you know, this was just to demonstrate the power of sound and how, you know, I forced you to close your eyes. So then you have to, what happens is the brain sort of then compensates, and it opens up the other dimension of hearing. Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah.
That's done.
Yeah. So it opens up another dimension, you know, and suddenly hearing starts becoming acute. And once you start receiving these inputs of sound, you saw how it triggered memories,
Yes.
right? So many of y'all went back either to your school days, or you actually traveled also. It just took you places, right? It may be in your memory, may not be. It's actually the influence of that sound. And it's amazing, wherever in the world we've played this. Would you all agree that this piece of music was generally in the peaceful, calm kind of zone?
Yes.
Made you feel sort of happy and quiet and, you know, satisfied. So there is a reason that everybody is feeling like this. You know, across the world, we have found that, and not just to an Indian audience, that this particular piece that I play, it's a composition of mine called Peace.
Okay.
And there is a reason that all of you all are feeling like this. And the reason really is that this is a particular rag or scale. It's very famous in South India. It is called Hamsadvani, which basically means Song of the Swan. And it's a very, very beautiful rag. But what is characteristic about this rag or scale is that it uses only 5 notes in the scale. You know, it uses only these notes. And that's why you get this very melodious, beautiful kind of sound. None of you all could have seen night when you heard this. It's impossible, right? So now I'll just demonstrate. If I were to take the first 3 notes of this scale and I just change the 3rd note without changing the first 2 notes, you'll get a different feeling. Okay? So let's hear the first 3 notes from the original. Sorry?
Shut our eyes again.
No, not necessary. Not necessary. Okay? Now, first 3 notes of the original scale. Now I'm going to change only the 3rd note. Did you feel a sense of melancholy creeping in?
Yes.
Right? And you probably move from sunrise to sunset.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was the beginning of our journey in sonic branding, where we said that we are able to, you know, actually map the different scales and different rags and different harmonies and different rhythms, which actually create different emotional experiences, right? And we said if we are able to understand these emotional experiences that different scales actually cause using the science of sound in some sense, then we are able to elevate it to the art of music and actually create the sound of a brand if we know the character of the brand, right? So if a brand is a very exciting, adventurous kind of brand, then there is a piece of music which will express that. On the other hand, if the brand is a very caring kind of brand, there will be a piece of music that will express that and evoke those emotions. So that's really the construct and the beginning of our journey in sonic branding. Ajit, do you want to add anything?
No, and what is quite pertinent is that, you know, we are working in the space of brands, so that's of interest to us. And we're working in the space of global brands. And one question which people ask is, can you have a master sound, like you have a master palette, like you in your jargon? Can you have a master sonic palette, which is global in nature, which, you know, can be conceived in India and used in Latin America or in North America, etc., etc.? I think this experience tells us that people decode sound more or less uniformly.
Correct.
There's a certain part of your past and your memory structure which comes to play. And therefore, you know, we had a Russian gentleman who told us it took him back to the mountains in Georgia, and he saw, you know, a waterfall, and he saw children playing. So at one level, the scenario is exactly the same for everybody who's decoding it, or in the same zone, I would say. And at the other level, there is part of our personal memory which comes into play. And therefore, you're decoding Malgudi days, or somebody tells you, it takes me back to the hills, or it takes me back to the backwaters in Kerala, etc., etc.
True. Somebody also has written here that it's like changing a single color in your palette, you know, and the impact that that would have. So sound and color also actually are quite related, and so is smell, you know. I used to experience this with a friend of mine with whom I did color therapy, and where I could smell my color, and the action of seeing the color and smelling it would literally just kind of ripple through my body. So sound is something that you can add to that kind of an experience, definitely.
No, we talk of Vivaldi's, you know, four seasons.
Exactly.
Spring, you can actually smell the flowers, you know, when you're hearing it, if you're concentrating and you've got, let's say, earplugs, etc. So it's the same thing what you're saying, Gauri. You know, I think that and I think one big learning is that all our, you know, when we're talking about creating experiences, it'll be great if you could be sensitive to all our senses, you know.
True.
We all specialize in coming in from one sort of channel or one window, but I mean, if we can complement it with so many other, you know, forms.
So I'm just going to read some of the comments also at the same time. A question is, there are colorblind people, and so the way they see colors is different. Are there audio deaf people too? But we'll answer these questions at the end. There is one statement from Kavya says, British Airways paired sound with food in one gastronomic experiment.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm a big fan of that kind of activity.
Now, we can tell you more about that. We've just done something like that recently.
Great. So I saw on your website that there is something called a MOGO scape and a MOGO, in this palette of work that you do. What's the difference between a MOGO and a MOGO scape?
Yeah, so, you know, if you go back to the science of sonic branding, in a sense, you know, has existed for many years. Not the science, but I would say the form of sonic branding. And you know, from the earliest days, we had jingles.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you started having sonic logos emerging. So if you listen to Intel, right? Dun, 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 what I call the Intel bongs, right? Or if you remember, Nokia had this ringtone, ta-na-na-na, ta-na-na-na, ta-na-na, right?
Yes.
So that was the early emergence of sonic branding, in a sense, where it started with a sonic logo, or what we call a MOGO, but there's a difference, and we'll explain that. But we believe that today brands need to create an emotional field around themselves, right? So it's now sonic logo is more a memory device. It is more just a sonic mnemonic, if it were, which sort of creates recognition, right? So you spoke of Britannia. Now that's an example of early sonic branding, where it's just a device that you associate with your brand and nothing more.
Yes.
But we believe that by creating a MOGO scape, which is a sonic palette of the brand, it's actually, imagine it as a musical master composition for the brand, which reflects the brand's values, the brand's personalities, in its essence, the brand's emotion. Then that is the larger field of sound. And, you know, we respond to music, right? And that's why music is linked to memory structures, where if you listen to a piece of music, say, if you listen to the opening bars of Beatles, Here Comes the Sun, why is it that you're suddenly transported back to your childhood and you're sitting in your living room and, you know, you're listening to the old gramophone player? Because music has that ability. So we believe that we need to create an emotional context for brands. And therefore, the MOGO scape is the equivalent of the visual palette that you create for brands. This is the sonic palette. Now, within the sonic palette is embedded the MOGO, which is your hook or earworm, as they call it, right? Which then becomes part of your identity system. So we don't start with the MOGO. Rather, the MOGO emerges as, out of our exploration of creating a bigger sound for the brand, larger.
And how does it work? Do clients come to you, or do you go to clients and say that, you know, we think that this is the kind of sound that meets your company's
Ajit?
Yeah, I think it's been a journey. You know, we started off 10 years back. We were 10 years old in May. And when we started this journey, we were actually going out like category salesmen, you know, with a bag and going out and saying, listen, we're in sonic branding. And saying, so what is sonic branding? Or, this is what it can do for you. This is what it does. And so that was the first 3-4 years. And that slowly started changing. And we've noticed in the past 3 years, there's been a quantum shift in that client education, where today actually clients come to us and say we're looking for sonic branding, and they also have a correct picture of what sonic branding is, so they know what they're asking for. In the past, it was some sonic device they were looking for, like Rajiv said, a mnemonic, or we can call it a sonic asset. That's the most generic way to define it. So they wanted something to do with sound, and they'd say, aap karenge, will you do this? And then we said, no, what we're doing is much more than that, and et cetera, et cetera. But today, I think there's been a lot more work happening across the globe. And I think this brand MasterCard has been a big global sort of category seller. It's been it's a sort of a poster boy for sonic branding globally. And today people are, I think, much more, they're getting much more sensitive about it. And actually it becomes logical, because if you look at the way, the whole world of communication is going, 20, 30 years back, they talked of proposition and USP and, so basically they were saying that you have to make a logical argument to the buyer or the prospective buyer, and he buys into you. Today, there's no time and energy for that. Nobody wants a logical statement. So what you're left with in today's world is creating, like Rajiv said, a field where people, I gravitate to certain brands I feel close to. There's something about the experience I like. I can't place it. I don't know why, but it's not because it's got 3 colors versus 2 colors. It's not so logical. It's not so cognitive. And in that world, sound is a big ally, like design is. I think it works very, very similarly, I think.
And would you say it's also referral business in a big way, or is it really a client at a time that kind of reaches out?
There's a lot of referral, I think, because people know about it, but still new, and therefore you ask. I guess you must be asking people around you. Listen, what about this? And then somebody says, this is very interesting. So and so brand has done it successfully, and then maybe they ask. Now in India, we're the only major player. So if anybody's actually looking for it in India, the inquiry does come to us. But we do a lot of work outside India too. So
Asia, actually, yeah. Asia globally now we're actually working on a couple of global projects.
The referral is not there. So we're not known. We're not that well known.
But I think we've also discovered the power of LinkedIn.
Right.
In the
all
last,
of us.
Absolutely. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Because I was quite surprised when I was making the Instagram story posts that I could actually find Brand Musiq's MOGO skates available to post alongside. And that was amazing. A lot of other songs and music wasn't available, but Brand Musiq tunes were there. So it was very nice to post, with the sound.
It's become part of our business now.
Yes.
Yeah. You're pretty with it, I would say then. How many clients have you had so far that have, over the last 10 years used your services? Have they come back to say that we think we've changed? It's very often the visual logo changes after a couple of years. Do they also think that their sonic logo needs to change then?
Yeah, I can talk about Hdfc Bank, which is one of our big breaks a few years ago.
And an early client. Yeah. So at that time, they had a pan-India kind of vision. So I think contemporary Indian with global kind of vision was their whole feel. So the sound reflected that. We had a very modern fusion kind of sitar, but also intermingled with piano and very cool, jazz kind of drums and stuff like that. But at its soul, it was Indian, but with a very contemporary feel. Now, after around 3 years of the MOGO and the MOGOscape being there, they got back to us and said, hey, listen, our focus has shifted slightly. We want to attract the millennial generation and Gen Z. And can you create a digital version for us, right? But with the same, obviously with the same melodic construct. So that's what we did. So we created a more, and that's the beauty of music, right? Yeah. And it's the same with design, with visual design also, that it does keep evolving, right? Tastes change, but music
even more rapidly, I would think, because, suddenly a whole new wave of, say, hip hop or rap or something sweeps the market, and everybody's, so then adapting, but at the same time, I think it's a balance of how do you balance the timelessness of a brand with the need to keep connecting with the current generation. And that has to be handled, I think, skillfully, right? You can't throw away your legacy, brand legacy and values in the interests of, connecting with the new generation. Right?
So what is the, what is the work you've done for the millennials or even younger generation? Has that been a challenge?
No, not at all. I mean, for example, we've created the entire sound for Zomato.
Okay, I just heard that, yes.
Yeah, and it was fascinating, the kind of stuff we did, not just with creating the sonic identity, but we created an entire sonic navigation system for the app.
Oh, wow.
So I would urge all of you all for the next month, use only Zomato, keep your sound on. And over time, you will not have to look at the app any longer. The sound will prompt you as to where the rider is. When he's reached the restaurant, there's a sound which comes from the sonic identity. When he leaves the restaurant, there's a sound. And when he reaches your doorstep, the entire MOGO plays. So you know, hey, the guy's reached.
Oh,
so,
that means he won't have to ring the doorbell anymore.
No, he doesn't. Honestly, because actually when the MOGO has rung, I've gone and opened the door and you find the Zomato guy standing there with his finger on the...
Wow.
So these are the kind of experiments we're doing. Once you create an identity, there are a lot of things you can do in terms of design, UI, UX. How do you integrate it? Websites never have sound because it's so intrusive. Yes. But what if you could use sound for experiential feeling? If you're a travel website, you click on Greece and the sound of Greece sort of plays subliminally. How do you these are the things that we explore.
I think it will also be extremely educative to a certain extent, because people have forgotten where countries are and what they sound like, because we've kind of egalized culture so much that these kind of things are kind of lost, and it would be nice to have them back in that sense.
Absolutely.
So I quite look forward to that time. That you would enter Greece and then your ringtone just becomes a little Greek.
Yeah.
That's a lovely idea.
Why not?
No. What is that tune from Anthony Quinn?
Zorba the Greek.
Zorba.
Yeah.
It's a lovely idea, Gauri. It really is. Yeah.
Okay, done. You're going to get royalty for that idea once it happens.
Thank you. So you come into India, if you go to Maharashtra, you get a different sound. If you come to Gujarat, you'll get Garba. And
wow.
And the Gujus will love you for it.
Vodafone, here we come.
No, but you're absolutely right. And what we're saying is the ability to localize is going to get the connection much stronger. So that's always the attempt. Of course, it's an expensive and resource-heavy exercise for anybody to do, but the closer you get, the better your result is, really.
Yeah.
And you're making the experience easier for. We always take the analogy. Since we are on a design platform, we always quote the analogy of design, saying that what we're doing is very akin to that world. You're looking at creating experiences. You're looking at making people's life easy, whether it's UI, UX, etc., etc. And actually, we're just saying that there's another dimension to that whole world. And that dimension adds more to the same objective, the same end objective, really.
In a strange way, it is the visual identity, entire way of doing a visual identity is way ahead, or started many, many years before sonic branding even really started as a sort of science and a discipline, right? So for us, it's great because we always use, to make clients understand, we use the benchmark of visual identity. Right? So we tell them, hey, if you want a visual identity firm, you would go to one of the top specialist visual identity firms who only concentrate on that, right? You wouldn't just go to any art director and say, hey, create my visual. So exactly like that, you can't just go to a jingle maker and say, create my sonic identity, right? You have to come to
go to a jingle guy and say, make a soundtrack for the opening of a film. Because
Yeah.
you can do jingles.
Exactly, because there are different sensibilities. There is a science here. We are mapping emotions. We're understanding certain scales, create certain emotions. So we're looking at that and then linking it to what the brand is all about. So it's a long journey, but I think the analogy of visual identity is exactly what we are doing in sonic identity terms, right? So you understand the brand, the ethos of the brand, the legacy of the brand, the culture it's operating in, the semiotics of sound, in a sense, right? And then you create something that will actually, people need to close their eyes, and it should over time be Pavlovian, the MOGO,
Yeah.
which starts evoking memories and associations and feelings of a brand, and without anything else being around. And that is really the power of the MOGO.
True. So you have one brand, which is a global brand, and
Yes.
you'd like to share the journey you made with them.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody here is now ready. We should run out of time.
Yeah,
but still want to take the questions.
Okay, here goes. Yeah, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so really, this is just to dimensionalize sound and how important sound is. But let's take you through what we did for MasterCard. And this was like a big break for us 2 years ago. MasterCard actually commissioned us to create the sonic identity, their sonic identity across 190 countries, right? And it was an amazing exercise, because just imagine the diversity of culture, of socio-economic strata, etc., that one piece of music had to sort of span.
And you were fighting with James Bond kind of imagery.
Well, yeah, I guess that was the only close competition, in a sense. So when they commissioned us, and we have this system of avatars and rasas. We try and understand what an avatar of a brand is, and what is the rasa you want to evoke using our Indian Navarasas, right? Of 9 principal emotions. And MasterCard actually fell into the quadrant of being a magician brand, because they were about priceless moments. But we believe in creating an avatar blend, right? Or dominant and a subdominant. So a subdominant was every man or AMDAVADMA. Because of the debit card category or credit card category, everybody is invited, right? At the minute you're legally, you can own a credit card, you're there. So in terms of their rasas, they had a sense of optimism, joy, and surprise is what they wanted to convey, right? We put all this together. We have a process where we actually present mood boards and get feedback in a workshop kind of session, so that clients understand that, oh, this kind of value that I stand for could be represented by this kind of music. This kind of emotion that I want to evoke can be represented by this kind of instrumentation, etc. Sorry, you were asking.
So I wanted to ask, when you say sound mood board, should I understand it like that?
Yes, absolutely.
Because designers here are, aware of a mood board, more colors and shapes and textures.
Yeah.
What would a sound mood board look like?
Yeah. So what we've done is really we've mapped. If you take the avatars, basically we're using Carl Jung's archetypes, and we're saying it's your brand avatar, how you want your brand to be perceived, right? So we are saying, if it is a ruler brand, for example, if you look at the history of sound, you will find that rulers have been portrayed in sonic terms in a certain way. So there would be a sense of majesty, right? So there are horns used, there are big drums, etc. A ruler, hero, these are kind of sounds. But if you're talking about caregiver, you'd find a very kind. So we've mapped all these avatars, we mapped the rasas with equivalent fields of sound. And therefore, once we get the avatar and rasa combination of the brand, we start constructing it basis these guidelines of sonic avatars that already exist in our consciousness, actually. And then we design it and we present it almost like mood boards, and we say, hey, this is not, you don't have to say yes or no. This is a developmental workship. Yes, we're sharing sound. Ajit, you want to add anything? It's very interesting what we do.
We say it's co-creation. So
like a design thinking workshop, but then with sound.
Yes, Actually, it's the same way. If you gave the example of design mood boards, it's actually the medium is different. It's exactly the same. It's rough. You're able to do many more sort of options of it, or try various ways of appealing to the same starting point. And only thing is, what we're saying is that we're not coming through. We're saying that this is what you must use. We're saying that you when you close your eyes, you have a very clear sensibility of your brand. The brand owner has, and therefore you must judge. Does this sound like me or does it not sound like me? So we use it like a workshop, co-creation, and at the end of it, we actually arrive at not a winning melody, but we say we arrive at a zone of sound. So we understand that this is what sonically, this is the space where the brand wants to occupy. And that's what we go back and sit with our composers and create the MOGO scape.
Okay.
That's the process.
Because, it's very important to demystify music in a sense. It's, color is easier at times, though I'm sure you all have had your own battles with color, but it's easier to sort of ascribe values to color, right? So if you said, look, my brand is all about optimism, then you'd say, okay, then use bright yellow, right? And then the client say, okay, I get that connection. Or my brand is about passion, therefore use a deep crimson red. Say, okay, but if we say, hey, you got to use the Mixolydian scale, or I think a Dorian scale mode is better. What are you talking about, right? So we need to demystify it. And that's why this workshop is about actually sharing colors of sound, literally, and saying, hey, which do you think? Do you think this melodic riff fits your brand? Or does this instrument fit your brand? Like, does this death metal guitar, some brands say, hey, no, that's not my sound. And we purposely put sounds which are absolutely have no place being there, right? Just to get that reaction. So it's like a workshop kind of thing.
Actually, the grammar of sound is relatively new. And so therefore, what we tell people is that, you react to music like you reacted at the first session which Rajiv took. Everybody reacts to music, So all we are asking you to is close your eyes and just react to it, Just say whatever comes to you vis-a-vis the brand which you know very well. And even if you can't articulate your brand, you can feel your brand. Most promoters, they have a sense of what their brand is, They sometimes can't articulate it, but they can tell, this is not mine. This is not mine.
So once we did this process, we did the same thing for MasterCard. We dealt with a global team out of New York. And we arrived at, finally, after 3 months of work, we arrived at the MOGO scape, right? Now, what the MOGO scape is like a 90-second master composition for the brand, which defines the brand's sound at a holistic level, right? So, as I said, much like the sonic palette with a melody structure, a clear instrumentation framework, etc. So, let's have a listen to a little bit of the MOGO scape. That's just a snapshot. It's longer, goes into another section, comes back. But the melody is very simple. But we've imbued it with all the avatar and rasa elements, like the magical elements. They wanted a contemporary digital sound also built in. That's also been built in. Optimism comes through with the sort of drum beat or the BPM, right? It's like upbeat and active.
Got a bit of a groovy feel to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's have a listen to the MOGO, or the 3-second musical logo, which was integrated into the MOGO scape, right? So this is the MOGO. Okay, I'll play it again. Now, very interestingly, this is where the world is going. 3 seconds is also too long. So they want a 1.5 seconds mini MOGO, which will be used for digital transaction sounds, confirmation sounds, etc.
Okay.
So we had to create a special tone for the tiny POS systems that the mini MOGO is heard on. So this is the mini MOGO. Play it again. Right? Now you'll see these are the building blocks of the sonic identity system, the MOGOscape, the MOGO, the mini MOGO. Right? Now you'd see how it all comes together in their launch TV commercial. I'm going to skip ahead. I just skipped. It's fairly long, but you get the idea, right? So they built, all the elements have been built in, and at the end, the MOGO and the logo come together. And that's a constant feature that's built into the Sonic Identity Manual, right? How it should be used. And now let's take a look at, we spoke of different cultures. Now we're going to go do just that. How would you, if you had this MOGO and MOGOscape, how would you actually adapt it for different cultures? So this is how the Middle East would sound. Latin America. India, of course. Now, we did this for 6 to 8 countries, right? So Greater China, Africa, etc., capturing the sounds. Let's look at different, it's a huge brand, so many pieces of creative. How do you create templates for all the different moods and occasions? So if it were a playful sound, what would that sound be like? Or for MasterCard Priceless Nights EDL. Mother and child moment. Football anthem for EPL and European League to engage with their fans. Now they launched the Grammys 2019 pre-COVID, and I was lucky to be invited for the Grammys. The night before that, Camila Cabello, the Havana girl, actually had a concert, and she is creating a little promo for the new sound of MasterCard.
Hey guys, it's Camila. I'm so excited to be a part of the MasterCard family. It was so fun creating my version of MasterCard's Sonic brand.
That's Camila. Now, let's take a look at how the mini MOGO plays out in e-commerce.
Smart speaker. Order red acrylic paint.
Your order has been placed.
to all your everyday purchases. Tap with your MasterCard. Every day is a chance to start something priceless.
Now look at this. There's a concept we've created called sonic watermarking, where there's no visual logo and there's only the sound. So it doesn't come through as from a brand, but it's very subtly branded content. And they're going to create an album they're calling Priceless. This is the first in the album where a pop singer has created a song, but the sound MOGO is watermark.
I can see clearly, almost lost me nearly. It was such a mess. And
that's it. Subtlety is the name of the game. And, attracting the subconscious rather than the conscious is the power of music, right?
True.
So, best audio brand 2 years in a row. And I think it's sort of risen 77 places and dethroned McDonald's.
Wow.
So this is really a snapshot. I think we've just got a little time for questions.
Yes.
So I'll stop sharing now.
So I had no idea when I was, a message, Ajit, shall we do brand music session on ADI, what it would mean. And I'm just so happy that I did reach out to Ajit and said, would you guys be willing to do this? I'm so happy I did that. So
pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Shall we take the questions?
I can see Krishan there, old friend.
Yes. So question is,
I'm
colorblind
so happy to see you. I mean, it was a repeat telecast. I was just texting my friends and they were texting that was the best session they've ever attended. Sundar Balakrishnan, a violinist, is like big fan. I was just because we got lucky to hear this entire talk in person. And I hope all of you also, like, it's a completely different experience when you're sitting in front of these guys. Yeah, thank you so much.
I agree. But you have a question. There are colorblind people, and so the way they see colors is different. Are there audio deaf people too?
Oh, you mean those who have hearing but are...
Yeah.
Well, I think that's virtually impossible because the way different people respond to audio may be different. The same stimulus may sometimes create different memories because of your conditioning, etc. But I don't think there's anybody who cannot hear. You're subconsciously, if you just close your eyes and listen to the room around you, you will pick up all the various sounds that are there. Is that the question? Have I got it right?
Vibrations, yes.
Yes. So some years ago, Coke Studio Pakistan did a special session for the hearing impaired. And what they did was they made the seating for those people
right.
and the right vibrations, and they created a lightscape in front of them. So together with the light and the vibrations of the seat, they could experience the music, and they definitely did experience the music because you can see that in their expressions.
Yes. Yeah. So it's possible in that manner. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Because at the end of it, their frequencies are vibrations, sonic frequencies.
So in a world where, the branding world, which was so much full of visuals, you're bringing in the auditory space, right? Have you tried vice versa, which means like educate musicians and sound experts, for example, to like tune in well in terms of presentation experience visually too? You know what I mean? Because you come from both the worlds and you marry the two worlds, right?
Yeah.
So for example, if somebody is playing Rag Yaman, should there be a set of colors next to them versus when they start playing Rag Bhairavi?
So you have the Rag Mala, which is a very old concept in India.
Yes.
Where paintings have been created to rags.
Yeah, absolutely. So
even if carry on, Rajiv.
No, go ahead.
No, it just struck me that even if you look at in the world of Western music, if you look at the top performers globally, they've actually today, especially in today's era, the past 5-10 years, they're audiovisual sort of extravaganzas.
Yes.
So somebody's understood the power of light, sound, color, and sound. I mean, they're coming from the field of music, but so it's obvious that the more sensory, auditory, I mean, the combination of sensors you can bring to bear on the experience, you're going to give the person on the other end a far greater experience.
One last question. When we present visual designs to clients, logos, we present them in different slides so that they can see them separately. And then we can put them on the same slide as well for them to compare. How challenging is it to present MOGOs? Because you can only put one at a time because it goes through time, and then to compare because it still stays in my memory. Now I'm listening to you guys, but the MOGO of master, I mean, whatever you played, it's still playing in my head. So if you play a new tune now, how do I evaluate something like that?
But actually, it's been amazing, this whole journey of, the COVID journey really is, we've been doing everything online, right? All our musicians have been working at home studios. They've been composing at home. They've been sending it. Our sound engineers are designing, putting the mix together. So it's been a fascinating experience. So even when we're presenting the mood boards, what we've discovered is, of course, we request them to download it and listen to it before commenting. But it's all the mind's ability. We never thought it's possible that we'd present 5 different MOGOscapes and MOGOs in a workshop, and every client comes back and says, I like 1, I like 3, I like 5. So why do you like 1, 3, and 5? Now let's get deeper into it. Let's hear it again. And yesterday we just presented to a new client that's coming into the digital space. It was fascinating how they deconstructed it. We thought they could not, deconstruct music. Actually, wasn't it, Ajit?
And the vocal, the promoter was a chartered accountant type of profile, being involved in finance, and he had a professional marketer who had worked all over the globe in the top, I won't mention him, the top multinational companies. So, everybody looked to the marketer to, lead the way. And suddenly this guy who must be maybe in his early 40s, he was the most, expressive and most coherent in his feedback, because he was just sensing. He was a promoter, so he felt his brand. He had created this, it was his baby. So he could feel the baby, and he just articulated, this matches with what I had in my mind, or it doesn't match, or this best expresses that. So, it's demystified when once a person feels that I can comment. I think we come from a point that how can I comment on sound? I'm not trained in sound,
True.
Will somebody laugh at me? But
I think you guys are doing what it's historical. Maybe there'll be a National Institute of Sound Design, for example, instead of NID, 20 years later, or NID will incorporate a course in media and sound where you guys will set up the curriculum, and for years we'll remember this, that there were these men who, made us think this way. Thank you so much.
Can I just add, that yesterday what Ajit was just saying, that the promoter of this startup, at some point he told the others in the team, you guys should stop deconstructing it. Just feel it. I mean, and that was the promoter. He said, just feel it. I just feel it is right. If you just react instinctively, don't try to break it down. I mean, that was crazy coming from the promoter.
Actually, Deepak, now that I think of it, actually, we have all felt emotions much stronger, easier with music than with visuals.
Yeah.
As individuals, as laymen. So technically, this should have been done. I don't know why it's not been done for so many years, and now these guys are doing it. So yeah, thank you.
I think in the world of brands, I would say it's because of the digital world. I think it forced people to, from a commercial point of view. I mean, it wasn't from the sensorial point of view, saying that we need other opportunities. We've worked so much with the visual world, and therefore I think people have started, accepting this. But you're right. I mean, the principles worked from the day sound and light existed.
I think a lot of things will also come in, especially from a personal brand point of view, where people are doing podcasts now and so on and so forth, to create that name recall, like you guys said. It's fabulous. I just see millions of opportunities in what you do. Thank you.
So, Christian, you were talking about sound and color and things like that. So we've actually it's soft launch. Nobody knows it, but we can tell you about it. We've created an entity called Brand Musiq Labs. Okay. So what Brand Musiq Labs really is going to do is going to explore what we call cross-modal sensorial experiences, right? So if you couple sound and taste, does the taste of the chocolate change when you're listening to different pieces of music, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at a painting and you have different pieces of music on the same painting, does your perception of that painting change, right? If you're smelling something and you're listening to different pieces of music, does your perception of the smell of, and we have proof, we have science to prove that it does change with the perception, with the different stimulus of sound. So this whole sonic navigation and bringing tech and AI and machine learning into sound and creating experiences for customers, etc. What about changing the human experience, music and wellness, right? So we created an entire series for Lenovo we call Sonic Balm, which really is mapping the mindset of all of us today, which is about anxiety, anger, frustration, depression. And we have created a playlist which addresses those in each of the pieces, which makes you, it's a 1 minute refresher, just listen to it, get away from the world, but you'll feel calm and better at the end of it. So Brand Musiq Labs is really going to, so let's do something with color and sound together.
Sure.
We'd love to.
We'd love to do something with you for this. I'll get in touch.
Sure.
And I'm sure there are people, once they see what's happening, more and more people will reach out to you. And I think more people will be required to carry out the kind of work you do. Now that you kind of set the pace and the way that it could be done. Just one more question. Did MasterCard find you, or did you find MasterCard?
You'd be surprised. They found us.
And how?
Ajit, you want to answer that?
I mean, from what we understood, I mean, after working with them and getting to know them, is they had worked with a lot of American sonic branding agencies. The global marketing head, he was obsessed with this project as a personal project, at his level. He was at the board level. And they'd been unsuccessful. So he had told McCann Worldwide, which was his agency, to look for people outside of the US. So they'd looked at South America, Africa, and Asia. And some way he had seen the Hdfc Bank work online through some coincidence. And he also gave that name to the India office, saying, I've seen this thing and they're in your neck of the woods. So if you know them, just contact them and see whether we can connect. And that's how it started.
Wow.
So we didn't really pitch with anybody and,
Yeah. And, we were also pleasantly surprised that we were chosen because we are a small team. We've got about 10, 15 people, right? And there are global agencies across the world, etc. So we actually later on asked them, why did you choose us? And the answer we got is very interesting. And I think it's got to do with our process, simplicity of our process, our link to emotions, right?
Cultural context also maybe.
Yeah. And our cultural context, in the sense that we approach music from a very emotional sense, right? But if you look at the evolution of the audio logo or the sonic logo, it basically started with notification sounds of computers.
Yes.
It was all a very technical kind of thing, right? So the West, they basically create these sonic mnemonics more logos from a sort of technical point of view. So it doesn't really evoke an emotional response in that sense, right?
Yeah.
But we approach it from a music point of view.
Yeah.
And we say the MOGO is only a shorthand. It's the shortest distance between a brand and a consumer's heart, is what we say, right?
Yeah.
So
any more questions from the gallery? Would everybody like to switch on their cameras for a moment? We'll take a little screenshot of everybody who's here.
It's actually for the beauty contest. We don't tell that.
Or we can give sound to each one's face. So Anuj Sharma is here. He is the chapter chairman for Ahmedabad.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi.
So much. It was fantastic. Sound and design is very, I mean, of course, what Christian was talking about, how design should incorporate sound. And I've been saying this for a long time. NID should be NI design, dance, and drama. So, which is when then there'll be sound and everything else included. I think without the sound and movement design is pretty incomplete. So thank you for bringing sound into the concept. It sometimes get very difficult for people to understand that design becomes only like visual, but it's so much more. And is there a possibility to kill sound through sound? Like noise through sound?
Yeah, you mean environmental noise?
Yeah, I mean, because of one of my concerns has always been how to cut the sound on the streets.
Right. Yes. Yes.
People are so used to honking that is there a way we can like cut sound? Like if we play music of a certain kind on the place or some other way, but how do you cut sound through sound? But it's just like, how do you reduce noise pollution through sound?
No, definitely. In fact, one of the things that we have a dream is to actually create the sound of a city or the sound of a nation, right? Now, imagine take Mumbai city, take Ahmedabad. Imagine if we create the sound of Gujarat, right? But now we create variations to play in all the parks, in the public places, on the waterfronts. It's all coming from a sense of sonic identity of that particular city, but it has different layers depending on the place it's playing, right? So if it's playing in a park, maybe there's a different kind of sound. But if it's playing on a busy street, say just a walkway, there could be different kinds of sound. You can sound design an entire city, really. I mean, theoretically.
It's a good idea. We should look at it, Gauri. We should figure it out because it's the one way to cut noise pollution. I think it's the biggest pollution around.
Absolutely.
It's better sound.
No, and what happens is currently it's also always Bollywood that's playing, which is deteriorating the quality of aesthetic understanding of sound. This no sense of lyrics, no sense of sound. It's just noise. I mean, I stopped listening to the radio completely. I'd rather listen to All India Radio because they play decent music and also the DJ is not screaming into the radio, but actually announces who the song is by, from which film, who is the lyricist. That actually kind of is pleasant to listen to. So I think it's very, very important that this change comes. And definitely as a design community, everybody can kind of add value to this, can take this much more further, and there's so much more possible, so much more. I really did not think of this through when I kind of, like I said, reached out to Ajit. I had briefly met Rajiv some years ago at Ajit's house, and one morning, LinkedIn, as you said, I saw Ajit post something, and on a Sunday morning, I thought, wow, why don't we just ask Brand Musiq to come and do a tête-à-tête with them? So that's how it's come. If you remember, on my list there is no Brand Musiq, the one on the ADI group. So this has just happened like that, and I'm so happy we did it.
That was the beauty of it, Gauri.
Yeah.
I have a question, and the question is mostly, what about like clashes of the semantic of sound? Like many people, different cultures will have different associations. So what would be the clash? Have you come across any negative like repercussions or something?
Well, so far so good.
But we need to be sensitive to that, and we are conscious of that.
Yeah.
So if we work in an environment like, we've done a lot of work out of Indonesia. We've done some work in Africa, in parts of Asia.
Places with strong regional context. Yeah.
So we have to get somebody to guide us on some cultural context there from a sonic point of view. Of course, a lot of music which is available, which we can listen to, which represents the cultural sensibility sonically of certain areas. But we also actually speak to people who work in that space, and maybe even bounce off the work we do to see that it's not in doesn't create that tension which.
That's a very interesting question, because if you look at, I'm not a big fan of Bollywood, but Bollywood has, I think, there's one advantage of Bollywood, that all the work we did that you saw, you know, the Middle East, Latin America, Africa, everything was created in Bandra West, right? Because Bollywood has so many specialists. So if you just pick up the phone and you call, one guy will come with a mini truck, which he's driving himself, and he will come out with all the stringed instruments in the world. So you will instantly get, you know, proper the Chinese lute. You will get the Middle Eastern oud, etc. But it's just amazing. So MasterCard were blown away. They would have had to go to 10 different sonic agencies across the world to get the kind of width that we could do. And that was because of Bollywood.
That's also one thing coming out of a lab called the MOGO truck, where you take the truck to the client, you deliver your branding, and you come back.
Oh, wow.
But
also,
go ahead, please.
Also, you need to realize that music is universal. I mean,
yes.
Summer of '69 plays this first two bars anywhere in the world. You know, people start dancing. It is universal. So a lot of music is universal. So what we are trying to do is completely mass. It has to appeal. So that's where Bollywood actually is more inspiration, you know, than rather just the classical pieces which certain people will like, because all these brands target massive audiences. So MasterCard has to appeal to so many people. So it's more popular mass that you need to actually create.
Actually, you guys have a very design way of looking at sound versus an art way of looking at sound. You know, we say artists just express what comes to their head, but designers are there to solve a problem. Designers are finding application to certain needs.
We are all marketeers, brand and marketing. So that's where we realize we are not into art. We are into commercial art, you know, art which sells.
Great. So how would you keep your sensory bias? Like, how would you tackle with your own sensory bias? Or maybe when you are collecting different kind of sound pieces, how would you go about sensory ethnography or your sensory bias at that particular point of time?
No, I think the only way to do that is to have a diverse set of musicians working for you, right? So today, thanks to the internet, you can get any kind of instrument, any kind of musician in an hour's time. You want a Georgian instrument, you can get it. You want, right? So, but there is, I think through our experience, there is a feeling that we create for a brand. We know that it should be in this zone of sound, which is why the sonic mapping workshop is very important, right? Where you get that feedback, you understand. At the end of it, everything is relative. Everything is perception. So how does the client perceive his brand? That is the truth as far as we are concerned, right? And as long as they perceive that truth. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just a thought building on what you said earlier about a city, right? Now, Asian Paints, you walk inside and they give you hundreds of colors you can choose from. Ki har ghar kuch kehta hai. How should your house feel when you enter in? You know, what if there is a MOGO for my house? So when I enter, what do I want to feel? So can I tune in for a weekend MOGO versus basis my personality? So you could probably partner with interior designers and suggest MOGOs for people at home.
I used to do this because I used to head the interior design department. And to my second year students, I used to ask them to build their interior with sound and smell, besides the colors and the textures, etc. Because I said, I want you to understand and feel what you're designing completely so that you can actually then talk about it. And then it doesn't matter that you're doing it for an interior. Once you've done it, you will keep doing it for everything else. So it's already kind of...
Here they're talking about identity also so powerfully, like a space, for example, a university or a school that is famous for, let's say, a certain education. Their bell should not sound the same like other universities. Ding, 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 ding. They could have a beautiful identity that these guys do. So much application, so much possible.
Yeah.
Actually, I was also thinking that only this session is not going to end here. Actually, it is going to start from here.
Yeah.
You know, there is so much of input, and you are working on such a different level of creativity that it is enticing your brain and your ears and sensories, all organs, that you want to then keep on connecting and rebuilding on what you have heard and listened to. mean, this is amazing.
So what I'm going to do is be a little shameless, and I'm going to put my email ID up. So if anybody wants to,
please do.
Please, that would be helpful.
That would be wonderful, actually.
So, and I'm putting Ajit's email ID also up, so you can reach out to us. We are really excited to explore, look at new possibilities. I mean, designing the sound of a city has been our dream for as long as we, can imagine. So,
Mr. Rajiv Raja is alive with energy, like, totally lit up at about 2 in the morning. He, any time of the day or night, he's got energy. This is, I think, the whole area of working in a space which firstly, sort of touches you yourself.
Yeah.
And also for all of us who work, it's a totally new space. We're not following any, any system which has already been created. We're creating it.
Yeah.
And we're borrowing from certain fields. I think we borrow a lot from the field of design, to be very frank.
And hence cross modality is important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are sensitive to cross modality because we started that. When we explain to a client as to what we do, we actually, the reference is the visual identity system which designers do,
Yeah.
We give that because that is known to most people, especially marketers.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share this part. Like, do you also feel very innocent? Like, go back to your childhood memories more when you are creating this kind of things or you are doing sensory branding, because it just takes back to the purity of what you are, like when you were just exploring the whole world with senses.
Yeah, I mean, I can say not for one day do I feel that I'm working. It's just, we're just having a great time. We're doing what we love. And we are on the frontier of creating a lot of new things, though that has its own frustrations in terms of building a business and scaling up. But
so what are your experience about the station?
I have to cut you short because I think we really overrun our time.
Yeah, you can with us and we can have a chat anytime.
Yeah, please reach out. Our emails are there. We can continue.
It's like I said, it is going to start now.
I also just want to say to all the designers here, whenever you are doing a logo design, that is, I think, the right time to contact Rajiv Raja. Because when you're beginning the visual journey, if you can incorporate this journey too, it would be magical, right?
It will be a fantastic exercise.
It's the greatest for the brand.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Ajit and Rajiv, for saying yes and for being here on such short notice. Very, very thankful that also ADI could fit us in on the date and time that we so wanted to. And to everybody who's here and who will listen to this conversation over the years, wherever they are. And I hope and I will listen out for more and more as I walk the street or enter shops. And every time I will hear the MasterCard MOGO, I will think of you guys. Thank you.
Zomato also.
We're going to follow Zomato also. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.